Welcome back to another coffee and a chat. So, I don't know, it's weird. I don't even know exactly how to approach everything. So, I'm going to just step out on a limb here and just kind of tell you some things that I'm feeling, okay? It started, I would say last night. We had given our daughter a ride home. And on the way back, something just didn't feel right. And when I looked at the moon, something about it didn't look right. I don't know. I can't. It's like everything is out of season, out of whack. For us yesterday, it was in the 70s. It might have even hit close to 80 degrees. It was very warm, shirt sleeve weather. It was like summer. And today it's getting cold again. And so I know the weather's been really up and down. It's been very unseasonal most of the time. And Marvin and I were sitting out on the deck for a little bit this morning. I couldn't stay very long. It was just, even with my coat on, it was too cold. I had to come build a fire in the wood stove, where yesterday it was hot and summer and I had fans blowing on me. So I don't know. But we were looking at our trees and how a month ago, our maple trees started to bud out like they do in spring. And then it got real cold and they've just kind of like frozen time. And they're not doing anything more. They're just sitting there, and it's, the sap is supposed to be down in the trees, but yet it keeps coming up and then it goes down. And it's like, I don't know what these trees are going to do or how they're going to fare through it, when spring and summer really do get here. And will they get here? Or are we going to have snow in July? I don't know. I just know that last night I told Marvin, I go, something just doesn't seem right. The moon doesn't look right to me. It looked like a big harvest moon that you would have in the fall, or what we called harvest moons. I guess there is one technical harvest moon, but whenever, the moon would get really giant in the sky and it would turn kind of orange because of, things in the atmosphere and stuff. So, I couldn't shake that just did not look right. And that's not what the moon should be looking like in January. And how it seemed to be sitting low in the sky so much longer. Something just was off. And I had this feeling like something's going to happen. And it's not necessarily good, but it's like something's about to happen and I don't know what. And so I thought, well, maybe I just, because of different things that happened in the day, maybe I was just feeling that way, whatever. I went to bed early. I was very tired. I thought maybe I just need sleep. And all day today, I cannot shake that. So I went on the internet and was trying to look up stuff about, why moons appear that way and all. And there was a lot of stuff that was like, it's just an optical illusion. It's a trick your mind plays on you. It really doesn't appear bigger or, and then it gave all the things that would turn the moon orange, why it would turn orange like that. And none of those things are going on. So that I'm like going, okay, that's weird that none of those atmospheric things are happening. There's no fires. There's no, we're not in an air polluted thing that I know of. I mean, we don't have a ton of that here. We're not, in a big city or anything. And I don't know. It's been on. Couldn't shake it today. And I keep asking the Lord, what do you want me to do for a video today? What is it that you have to share? And I keep coming back to everything feels a little off. And I feel in a way kind of silly to even say it because I can't give you anything specific. I can't say, well, this is happening. I mean, the moon seemed off. It seemed out of season. It seemed weird. Our trees, they've been off. They've been out of season. They've been weird. But it feels like it's more than that. But it's just kind of like that gut feeling. I can't really give you anything solid to go on. So I'm like, really, do I just go on and say this, And I don't want it to be scary or a downer, but as I began to look in the scripture, I was reading different scriptures about, not walking in the flesh and making sure that we're serving the Lord and that our heart's right with Him, that we're loving our neighbors, that we're loving Him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, from the other day. That, and I'm like, so are we getting ready to enter into something that could be faith shaking for us? I don't know, but I'm kind of wondering if we are. And if I'm supposed to do this, then I need to go ahead and just say it, even if it makes no sense. And another thing I keep hearing, lots of people now, when they're sharing things, they'll go, if you've got ears to hear. And some will even add, and eyes to see, which I always say that. That's always just felt very natural to me when we're dealing with things going on us around it. It's not always just the ears to hear what's being said to you, but do you have the eyes to see what's going on around you? And that maybe we should be a little bit more alert. I'm wondering. So for me, I'm trying to be a little more alert. I'm trying to pay a little more attention. There were a lot of things that I was reading in different news feeds and stuff that were kind of like, oh, it's just people's mind playing tricks on them or whatever. And so I used to have a narcissist in my life. I've had multiple narcissists in my life, but one particular one that was pretty severe. And one of the things that they always did was, they played these mind games. Oh, you didn't see what you thought you saw. That wasn't there. Or, or you didn't hear me say that person. I never said that to them. Or this is only happening because, of what you did. And it's called gaslighting. And I notice it more and more with our government and with news reports and stuff, that there's a lot of what I would call gaslighting going on. And so just the logical side of me from past experience starts going, okay, so whenever somebody starts doing that, it's because they're trying to hide something. They're trying to distract you, get you to look over here because they don't want you to look over there, because over there you'll see something they don't want you to see. So let's look over here, and then it'll just pass and everything will be fine. So you guys, I don't know what's going on, but I don't think it's just me. I don't think that I'm just tired or, something that I saw or read or whatever is getting to me. I really feel like in my spirit, something is off. And so as I was getting ready to sit down to do this video, God brought back a memory of something that I actually shared this with a lady I know the other day. The Lord had brought it back to me then, and he has brought this memory back a few times. So, years ago, and I may have shared this to some degree in the past, but I'm going to share it again now, and the way it's laying on my heart. So many years ago, in a church that, in the church I was part of, the pastor had read a book, and I cannot remember the name of the book. I'm pretty sure I still have a copy of it, because I did get a copy and read it after he was talking about it. And I have thousands of books, literally, I'm not kidding you, and I'm trying to downsize. I'm constantly working on that. And so it could be a while till I find that book, but if I need to find it, to read it for encouragement, I will. And if I remember, I'll share with you what the book was. But it's about a church, I believe, like in Los Angeles or around that area, some major city, but I want to say it was down somewhere around Los Angeles. And it was a huge mega church. And their pastor or pastors on staff had an experience with God to where they were really convicted about how controlled the church service was, and how they decided what to preach, and they decided what to share, and who got to sing, and everything was very constructed, neat and tidy, the way most churches do. But this conviction fell on them that they had pretty much programmed God right out of the service, that they weren't seeking what did God want to do? What did God want to say? And so they started an experiment where they put microphones all around their auditorium. And so if somebody had something that they wanted to share, they could step up to a mic and then do it. And so, and all the pastors would sit down in the congregation, nobody would be on the platform, and they would just invite God to take over the service. I mean, if Jesus Christ is head of the church, then why aren't we letting him be head, right? And so we'll just sit there and let's just see if something happens. Well, something happened, and it kept happening, and this church grew even more. I mean, at first I want to say that there was a bunch of people that left the church because they thought it was crazy. And there's always those people that are very concerned, well, you know, if we don't maintain control, somebody might say something they shouldn't say, or they might talk too long or dominate things, and, you know, all these little fears that we have. And these pastors kept saying, we're just going to trust God to take care of that. And, you know, and we as a church, if we feel somebody's getting off and we need to correct something, we'll correct it. If we feel, you know, and really what they were going back to was the original blueprint of what the church was at its birth. And because the model that most people use now is, and definitely in America, is that European model of, you know, you have a building and everybody goes to the building, and, you know, and one guy gets up and does the preaching, and another guy might handle the music, and the songs are pre-selected. And anyway, it is, when you look at it, like, where is God in this, you know? And even if I said, well, I was praying and asking the Lord what he would have me to do, okay, that's fine. But do we ever just stop and give God freedom and go, okay, you know what? I'm not going to say anything for a little bit here, and just give room for you, because you're the one that's really supposed to be in charge here. Well, this church, after the initial shock of whether people left or didn't, but just the shock of trying to deal with a whole different idea of church, they began to grow and things began to change. There were, one of the things I was impressed upon, or impressed by, was there were people in the congregation, you know, people in the church that, like, there was I want to say it was an elderly woman, and she didn't have any, she had never had children or grandchildren. See, my light didn't want to cooperate. That's okay. Make sure this is still good. Okay, whoops, didn't mean to do that. All right, so they would find, you know, a family in the church would, you know, that didn't have a grandma, then, you know, it would be like, you know what? You have no family. You're all alone. We have no grandma because our grandmas have all passed. We're going to adopt you. And they would have actual adoption ceremonies, you know, within the church to make a commitment in front of everybody. And one of the testimonies was of a young man. I think he had been involved in drugs and stuff. And he was older, in his 30s or 40s. And he found the Lord and he got off drugs. But he had no idea what it was to be a godly man, or, you know, and he had not been raised in a godly home. He had no history or understanding of Christianity and the Bible and all. And so an older couple in the church adopted him, and he went and lived with them in their home for a year while they treated him like a son. And then their children, who were also grown, you know, adopted him like a brother. And it just, the testimony was amazing of how it changed his life. And that, when, you know, I heard about that and was reading it in the book, and some other articles that I want to say Christianity Today, or somebody, they had run articles on this church too. It was really talked about. It was back in the 90s. I do remember that. And anyway, the fact that we are supposed to be a family, that we are supposed to be there for each other, and how they took that literally, and to make sure everybody had what they need. And I've always believed that if we really lived that way, and if we gave and shared like the New Testament church did, we'd have no need for anybody to have to help anybody. There would be no need for Social Security or social services. No disability would be needed. I mean, we would be there for each other, and we would all be working together all the time to keep an equality and make sure that everybody had what they needed. But instead, we get all caught up in, well, but I want a really nice home. And, so most people don't want to live in a more modest home in order to give more money to help somebody else. Or they don't want to drive a more practical, inexpensive car when they can afford to go get a fancy one. And that's fine, because that's your business, your choice, my business, my choice. But the early church was really, they reached out to help each other. And, again, we could go back to that, because there's some stories about it when they tried to lie to God and say that they had given everything when they only gave a portion. And they were told, you never had to give everything. You could have just given a portion and said it's a portion. The problem wasn't whether or not wasn't that you didn't give everything. It was that you lied and said you gave everything. And God will not be lied to. And so, that had catastrophic results for that couple. But I just, I think that as, with this being point number 2, point number 1 being something's off. Something feels very off and like something major is about to happen. Number 2 is that I think we need to be more proactive in helping each other and being there for each other and meeting each other's needs. I mean, God is the one who supplies our needs, and he lacks nothing. Everything is in his control and care, and so he can provide for us to help another person, because it's very good for us to give and to help another person rather than just thinking we need to, pocket everything for ourselves. But then the other thing was the pastor of the church I was at. He had shared about this book and what this church was doing. And so he said he wanted to see what would happen. So he said, Sunday night, tonight we usually have a pretty informal service. This is back when they used to have Sunday night services and Wednesday night Bible study. And, we used to be at church more than we are now. But anyway, he had said, tonight what I want to do is I want to just sit down with you guys and let's just show up on time. Everybody be quiet when you come in, and let's just sit and wait and see what God does. Let's invite him to take control. And so we did that night. And it was an odd feeling to just be sitting there. Nobody on the platform, nobody doing anything, and just waiting. And then I think pretty soon somebody started to sing a song. And it was a small church. We didn't need microphones. But somebody started to sing a song, so we all joined in with them. Then somebody else quoted a scripture that meant something to them. And then somebody shared a testimony or whatever. What I can tell you is that was one of the best church services I've ever been in, and not one person ever stepped up on that platform. Not one person ever took the microphone to guide us in, or explain to us what we were doing, or we just showed up and shut up and waited. And God did not disappoint. So this would be my third point that I want to make on this video. We need, I think, now let me not say we need or you need to or anything. Yeah, we're always told in counseling you're not supposed to tell people that. Let me say, I think for me, I want to do more of that. Sit down, shut up, and wait on God. I am very interested in what he has to say, and I want to be able to hear it and receive it. That I believe that he will not fail me in that, and just wait and see and let it be his agenda, his message, his work. I mean, I'm a person that, because so many things in my life, I think, have been out of control and out of my control, that I think that has made me someone that feels like I need to take control over whatever I can in my life. And because there's a fear of what happens when I'm not in control and somebody else is, and that I could get hurt, I could get harmed, because that's what's happened in the past. And so that's a battle that I fight all the time, trying to give up that that control to God, and this requires that. But I think for me, I want to go a little further, a little deeper with that. And I would hope that if this is, that this is touching different ones' hearts, that it is making sense to you, that there's others out there that are going, yeah, I know, something does feel off, doesn't it? Something does not feel quite right. Can't put my finger on it, don't know what it is, but it feels like something's about to happen. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been where there's a tornado. We had one, we lived somewhere where tornadoes didn't happen, and yet one came through, and it went right across our land and our house. This was years ago. I was married to my first husband. He wasn't there, but there was a bunch of people at my house, and we had been having a Bible study, and a tornado came through, picked up our above ground pool and shredded it in the neighbor's field. But the thing that I remember about that was all of a sudden, things just didn't feel right. This was before we didn't know there was a tornado in the area. We didn't have any TV on, or I don't even know if we had cell phones then. I don't know. Anyway, we're out in the country, and it was just us, but somebody knows it's awfully quiet. Like, you couldn't even hear a bird chirping or a dog barking off in the distance. And out in the country, we could always hear dogs. It was very quiet, and there was something very eerie about the atmosphere. And we're sitting there going, this feels off. It feels strange, like something's about to happen. And then the next thing we know, we heard this noise that was like a train, is the closest thing I can come to. It sounded like a train was coming along the back of our property, but there's no trains there. And then as it whipped through and was throwing things everywhere, it wasn't a huge tornado, but it was technically a tornado, and it was big enough to do some destruction. And so we had some kids had been outside, and they had come in just before this happened. I was very grateful, because if they had been out in that, they would have been killed. I have no doubt about it. But that's kind of the feeling I have right now, just a little off, and feel a little on edge, and something just in the atmosphere does not feel right. So I'm not going to fear it, because I trust in God, but I'm going to pay attention to what's going on around me, and I'm going to be on guard, be on the alert. I am going to be trying really hard to listen to the Lord. And if somebody needs me, if he tells me to help somebody, I'm going to help them, because I guess I feel, my impression is that more and more we need to be relying on the Lord and following him, instead of trying to get somebody else to follow us, instead of doing or following our own agendas. We need to be aware of his. So I don't know if this made any sense to anybody. I hope it did to somebody. I don't know any better way to say it. If I do, I'll remake the video and do it in a better way, and you'll never see this video. But I had to step out and just do what I felt the Lord was telling me to do. So we'll see what he does with it, because it's his, not mine. All right. I love you guys. Have an awesome day. And hopefully I'll talk to you tomorrow.